I know that my mother gave me precious life, and I honor her. But of course, she died, let's see, how long ago? Let's see, 16 years ago. But so I'd like us all to just for a moment just say a prayer for our mothers. And don't leave out your fathers. Okay. Anyway, so this precious gift that we are given, and this is a special day, and I feel so privileged to be able to speak with you today. And you know, I'm a person who cries on the drop of a pin, so you have to have to understand that, that's another strange quirk of my nature or something. But I'm incredibly sensitive. I can't go through most movies without crying, and am too sensitive to go in some places of the world because I can't handle, you know, seeing, you know, people in poverty and unable to feed themselves and take care of themselves. And if there's anything I can do in my life as an inventor and creator to help alleviate that, then that's what I want to devote the rest of my life to. And one of the things about the development of crystal energy and microhydrogen and these other products is that these were created during a very special time of my life. And most people don't know this, but we were celibate for 10.5 years, my wife and I, when we created those products. And we were called brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is a thing in India known as married celibates. And this is a special condition in which you develop your spiritual nature as much as you can. And it was during that time, living in isolation in Arizona, working in the lab hours and hours every day from, I would work in my lab generally from about 10 at night to 6 in the morning. For all those years, for about 10.5 years. And it was during that period of time that all of these discoveries came, and so they are very special discoveries, and I feel that it's a wonderful privilege to have been able to bring them into the world. And so all this work with water and the creation of these things is having an effect. And there is this company. How many of you are Royal Body Care distributors? Oh, there you go. Okay, Royal Body Care is one of the companies that's carrying a lot of these products forth, and it is a multi-level, you know, kind of company, but it's the best one that I've ever seen in my entire life, and it's got about 100,000 distributors now, and I think they're growing in distributors by about how much a day? I mean, it's some enormous amount. I think it's 3,000 a week or something like that. But it's so microhydrogen, crystal energy, all of these things are a whole new mineral-based technology that alters the energy of water, alters the energy of food, protects foods and nutrients from oxidation and destruction by various environmental attacks and things like that. And so we're creating this whole new thing, which is actually spreading throughout the world, which is pretty exciting. And I see my own life because those products. I see us improving these ideas in the lab and so forth, and creating other new exciting nutritional products. But I also see my life taking a greater spiritual turn. I see my life taking another turn and actually going in cycles. For example, the study in yoga that I did when I was 11 years old is a whole lot different than the study I'm doing right now, and so forth. So I see my whole life as being one of cycles where I'll work on something and then work on something else and then work on something else, and all of these cycles are kind of converging into something. I'm not really sure where it's going, except that when I had the near-death experience on Good Friday, I do know one of the reasons I'm so incredibly sensitive is that I've seen some things that are potentially coming for the world that are not too happy, but not happy at all. But I also see some good things coming. I mean, good and bad. And the wonderful thing is that some of the products we've developed, like microhydrin, will play a profound role in the world. It's amazing. Microhydrin is the fastest selling product in history right now. I mean, it's selling so fast. Clinton Howard, president of Royal Body Care, has a thing on his computer now. He has the most sophisticated program. He can punch in any product and see what its graph is. And microhydrin is like this. I mean, microhydrin graph is straight up. It's exponential straight up. And it is the fastest selling product in history of any multi-level company or any company in the world right now. And the reason it's selling like that is because of the marvelous things that it does when you take it. I mean, it's amazing. It's one of the few products that I've ever taken or that you can give another person that they usually feel something within 20 minutes. You give a person one capsule of microhydrin and they feel elated. They feel a lift in energy or a lift in mood or a lift in something within 20 minutes. Okay. Yes?
Do you have any problems keeping up with production, both the crystal and microhydrin?
No, thank God. The question is, am I having trouble keeping up with production? No, thank God. I don't see. I've expanded my lab, my production lab, to the point where we can produce. About 60,000 pounds a month or something like that right now. But I have the capability. We have the capability of multiplying that, even more. But I have that capability right now, and But the interesting thing, the nice thing about it, which is profound, and I'd like to explain it a little bit since I got on this, is that is the subject of viruses. In the world, there is no such thing as a viricide for the living system. Viricide is something that destroys viruses, and of course, bactericide is something that kills bacteria, and so forth. Fungicide is something that kills fungus, and so forth. But the only thing that people were trying, for example, in Europe, if someone came in with a virus like hepatitis C or AIDS or something like that, what they would do is take the person's blood, run it through an ozone machine, treat it with ozone. Of course, in America, this is not an accepted treatment, but in Europe, this was one way of getting the virus is with ozone, which is highly activated oxygen that's been ionized. The problem with ozone is that ozone is a bleach, and ozone it generates billions of free radicals in your body. I mean, it destroys cells like crazy if you do this. But the thing is, what happens is that if we drew a diagram on the board here, okay, and let's say everything in this area are pathogens that are bad for the human body or for an animal body. Okay, and this could be Candida yeast cells, and we can have bacteria, different kinds of bacteria and viruses and fungus and so forth, all within this. And over here we put pH on the bottom, pH, which is acid-alkaline balance, and this is pH 7, okay, and this is pH 3, which is pretty acid, and this is pH 11 over here, which is very alkaline. Okay, and on this side we put redox potential, which is a measure of the basically the number of electrons, free electrons in the system, and ozone is right up here. Redox potential of ozone. This is a redox potential of about 1,000. Okay, plus 1,000. Down here we have a redox potential of 0. And right here we have minus 250 and so forth. Okay, now what happens is that in Europe the only treatment that was known until recently for having an effect on a virus, especially, or most of these things, was that they called it the hot treatment. They would actually take blood out of a person's body, run it through an ozone thing. They'd actually bubble ionized ozone, oxygen, through the blood, and then filter it and put the blood back in the body again. And what they're doing is raising the redox. The blood has a redox potential of, a pH of about 7.2.
Hear me?
So if you draw a line, on this graph from a pH of 7.2 up, we see that if you can raise the blood, the redox potential of blood, anything above, say, plus 900, and leave it that way for a period of time, and then put it back in the body, you're destroying every pathogen in the blood. But you're not getting all the pathogen that are in the body, that are in the lymphatic system, and all the pathogens that are hiding in the brain, and all the pathogens that are hiding in the joints and other places in the body. You're getting rid of pathogens that are in the blood. And blood actually constitutes a very small amount of the water weight of the body. Our bodies contain, for example, my body contains about 100 pounds of water. But as far as blood goes, my blood, doesn't. I only have. Pardon? No, 20-something pounds. Yeah, 20-something pounds of blood in my body. So 80 pounds of that water wouldn't be treated by ozone. But anyway, so we take my blood out, we run it through an ozone machine. We raise the redox potential to plus 1,000. We're killing all the viruses and bacteria and everything that might be in the blood, but we're also generating billions and billions and billions of free radicals that are killing my DNA and destroying cells and all kinds of bad things. So, it's another form of therapy where you're trying to kill the bad guys before you kill the human, because if you ozonate the blood long enough and put it back in the body, a person will die from all the free radical damage caused by ozone. Now, what no one paid any attention to until I came along with microhydra, until we came along with it, was that the other thing is that if you can lower the redox potential, which means increase when you raise redox potential, you get rid of electrons. When you lower it, you have more electrons. Okay, and so free radicals, the damaging free radicals to the body, the ones most damaging are grabbing electrons from the body. So the whole idea is that if you can lower the redox potential of the bodily fluids, all the water in the body, to minus 250 or lower, and keep it that way for a while, these things just can't live in that environment either. They don't want to be there. You're not killing them. With ozone, you're actually killing them or destroying viruses and destroying bacteria and things like that. When you lower the redox potential to minus 250 or lower in the body, and you keep it down for a length of time, what you're doing is you're changing something called biological terrain. Now, the thing is that our cells thrive here. Our cells love it. They thrive here. Plus, you get rid of all the free radicals in your body. But all of these bad pathogens, they can't live there anymore. So they leave your body. They just go. They disappear because they can't live there anymore. And so this is so much better than this one. And so basically, when I started doing work on microhydrin, one of the first things I did, I've done this since about 1990. Around 1990, I lowered the redox potential of my blood, urine, and saliva, which meant all the bodily fluids in my body were that low. But I lowered myself down to minus 450 and kept it there for several months. And not only that, but we have this microscope called a Nessan's microscope. Dr. Nessan's is this guy in Canada that built this special condenser where you can see things in blood that you can't see with ordinary medical microscopes. And we were looking at our blood, and when we lowered ourselves down to this minus 450 range and kept it there for months, our blood became incredibly beautiful under the microscope. I mean, it's amazing how beautiful the blood cells looked. I mean, how healthy and how active, you know, all the white blood cells and how active everything was and how beautiful it was. And forgot what ordinary people look like whose redox potential is really in this range, which is ideal for all these things to live. Because if you take most people's blood and you put it under Nissan's microscope, you see little things that look like worms and all kinds of stuff swimming around in the blood, parasites and bad things crawling around, living in the blood cells and living in the blood. And it's a pretty scary kind of thing.
I want to contribute one thing regarding ozone, because some people may be getting ozone therapy either here in this country
Right.
or in Europe. And what is known and what is done after the initial blast, if you have a particular organ that really needs a blast of ozone, when you replace they are free radicals of oxygen, which still happens,
Right.
but you have to replace it, so they will give antioxidants at that point. So if one were to be doing therapy,
Right.
the microhydrin would be the ideal balancer to avoid any cancer.
Well, that's what I was, thank you, and you anticipated me because I was going to say that we now have doctors in Europe, doctors in the U.S., doing hyperbaric oxygenation therapies and ozone therapies disappear because they can't live there anymore. And so this is so much better than this one. And so basically, when I started doing work on microhydrin, one of the first things I did, I mean, I've done this since about 1990. Around 1990, I lowered the redox potential of my blood, urine, and saliva, which meant all the bodily fluids in my body were that low. But I lowered myself down to minus 450 and kept it there for several months. I mean, and not only that, but we have this microscope called a Nissan's microscope. Dr. Nissan's is this guy in Canada that built this special condenser where you can see things in blood that you can't see with ordinary medical microscopes. And we were looking at our blood, and when we lowered ourselves down to this minus 450 range and kept it there for months, our blood became incredibly beautiful under the microscope. I mean, it's amazing how beautiful the blood cells looked. I mean, how healthy and how active, you know, all the white blood cells and how active everything was and how beautiful it was. And forgot what ordinary people look like whose redox potential is really in this range, which is ideal for all these things to live. Because if you take most people's blood and you put it under Nissan's microscope, you see little things that look like worms and all kinds of stuff swimming around in the blood, parasites and bad things crawling around, living in the blood cells and living in the blood. And it's a pretty scary kind of thing.
I want to contribute one thing regarding ozone, because some people may be getting ozone therapy either here in this country
Right.
or in Europe. And what is known and what is done after the initial blast, if you have a particular organ that really needs a blast of ozone, when you replace they are free radicals of oxygen, which still happens,
Right.
but you have to replace it, so they will give antioxidants at that point. So if one were to be doing therapy,
Right.
the microhydrin would be the ideal balancer to avoid any cancer.
Well, that's what I was, thank you, and you anticipated me because I was going to say that we now have doctors in Europe, doctors in the U.S., doing hyperbaric oxygenation therapies and ozone therapies and all that, and what they're doing is they're giving their patients huge quantities of microhydrin before, during even, and after the treatment, and they're getting, so it doesn't wipe out ozone, it doesn't, you know, people who do oxygen therapies, you know, there are a bunch of people into oxygen. In fact, somebody sent me a brochure, Oxygen is King, you know, and the thing is, I'm not saying oxygen isn't a good thing, but oxygen without hydrogen, without electrons, is a bad thing. And of course, you know, hydrogen without oxygen is a bad thing too, because we can't live on hydrogen alone. One does not live on hydrogen alone. That'll be the or oxygen alone. But the fact is that we need oxygen and hydrogen to offset each other energy-wise in the body, because hydrogen, especially negative ionized hydrogen, is the thing that is the opposite pole to oxygen in the body. And in fact, we burn oxygen to create energy. Hydrogen, It's the other way around. Oxygen burns hydrogen in the body to create energy in the body. And so, so this is why this is so exciting, because the Center for Disease Control says that there are all kinds of things happening in the world that are kind of scary. I mean, there's the Ebola and all kinds of viruses and things coming out of the rainforests that are being destroyed and burned down. And as we're destroying the planet, it's interesting. We went up yesterday to the University to the Whole Earth Fair up at the University of California in Davis, and Jose Arguelles, who is a friend of ours, was talking, and he was saying that he remembers 26,000 years ago when he was brought in, that he was told that we could play on the earth, but we had to leave it cleaner than we found it. Boy, have we failed! And the point is that by destroying all the rainforest and all the by man's incessant drive to consume more and more and more of the resources in the earth, we're actually putting in a lot worse shape than it was before. And the thing is, it's possible that we're coming up with technologies and things that will help to. That's what I'd like to do. I mean, my rest of my life I'd like to devote to figuring out how to clean the earth out. That would be fun, and that's something that we might all be able to help out with. And there's a whole side of that too, which is too much to go into right now. But
how does microhydrogen work with hydrogen peroxide?
Microhydrogen works fine with hydrogen peroxide. In fact, I can put hydrogen peroxide and microhydrogen in water simultaneously and leave them there for hours and hours, and later on come back and measure hydrogen peroxide and microhydrogen. They do not destroy each other. What they do is the microhydrogen prevents free radicals from being formed, but which actually can actually help preserve hydrogen peroxide, because hydrogen peroxide in the body, forms free radicals. I mean, there are people who take hydrogen peroxide as part of therapy or oxygen therapy or whatever, and microhydrogen antioxidants actually help to protect the body from damage, while the hydrogen peroxide does certain things that are useful in the body. For example, there are enzymes in our body that produce hydrogen peroxide to kill bacteria. That's how they kill the bacteria. You find a bacteria, white blood cells actually release hydrogen peroxide, a small amount of hydrogen peroxide to kill a bacterium. And but then what you have to deal with are free radicals that are left over from the chemical process of killing the bacteria. And if you have enough free radical fighters, then you neutralize the free radicals, and you're in better shape than you were if you didn't have either one. Yes.
Is that why? Am I correct on the MS?
Yes. Right.
Wow.
Well, no, I didn't say minus 450 is ideal. I think minus 250 is ideal.
Correct.
I think minus 250 is a wonderful place. Minus 450 is like really. See, I do things to extremes, and for example, the reason I reduced my redox potential to minus 450 for months was to see if I could hurt myself doing that, and I couldn't. I mean, and that's because I wanted to. That was long before we were even thinking about marketing anything that could do this.
So another way of looking at it, though, some people refer to the human body as being 48 hertz as the normal. I'm not sure exactly what the 48 refers to.
Me either.
That a virus would be maybe 56 hertz, and that would.
No, that doesn't make sense to me. But about that particular thing. Anyway, let's take a quick break. Let's all take a break, and we'll come back in about 20 minutes, and we'll finish up with some more questions and answers.